Imagine it's around 300 BC.
Okay, setting the scene.
Yeah. So you're in the Chinese Warring States period. You are this incredibly powerful king.
Right.
And you've just received a message from the ceremonial ruler of the entire realm. He's threatening to execute your ambassador over, like, a minor breach of funeral etiquette.
Just a massive, massive diplomatic crisis.
Exactly. Armies could march over this. Thousands could die. And your official, recorded response to this world leader to avoid a total catastrophe is essentially 3 words.
And those words are?
Alas, for your mother was a slave girl.
I mean, it is arguably the most consequential, high-stakes mic drop in the ancient world.
It really is. And you know, it perfectly sets the stage for what we are doing today, because when you sit down to learn something new, as a listener, you probably expect to uncover, I don't know, the mechanics of quantum computing.
Or analyzing the socioeconomic fall of the Roman Empire, yeah.
Right. You probably didn't expect that today we're going to be rigorously analyzing the yo mama joke.
It does seem pretty counterintuitive. We usually assume we just, leave those behind in middle school.
Right, alongside dodgeball and locker combinations.
Exactly.
But our mission for this deep dive into the Wikipedia archives is to uncover the surprisingly ancient psychological and cross-cultural history of what might just be the ultimate taboo insult. So, okay, let's unpack this, because there is a profound structural reason why a Chinese king, an ancient Roman statesman, and a 1990s stand-up comedian all reached for the exact same linguistic weapon.
They absolutely do. And while these jokes might seem purely juvenile on the surface, they actually prey on one of the most widespread, deeply ingrained human sentiments across the globe, which is parental respect.
Yeah, that's universal.
Right. To attack that is to attack something incredibly fundamental to the human experience.
So before we get into the wild historical timeline, and it is wild, we first need to understand the anatomy of a burn. Like, how does an insult like this actually work mechanically?
And why does it target the mother specifically?
Exactly. Well, the basic formula is universal. It starts with your mother and is immediately followed by a derogatory statement. Usually it suggests, promiscuity or obesity.
Yeah, those are the main 2 pillars.
Right. And then it's illustrated by some wildly absurd example to create the punchline.
And the limit to that absurdity is really just human ingenuity. It's a linguistic structure that practically invites escalation.
It's a challenge.
Yeah, it is. But it is important to note that the punchline isn't always explicitly stated. Sometimes the insult relies entirely on implication.
Oh, meaning it forces the listener's brain to actually participate in constructing the insult against themselves.
Precisely. You have to fill in the blanks.
Okay, there is a highly specific, very German-sounding example of this from the text that I am just obsessed with.
Oh, I know the one.
Yeah. It goes, your mother's name is Ottfried, and she is the bull of Tolz.
Notice what that does linguistically. It completely avoids the words fat or ugly or masculine.
Right, there's no direct adjective anywhere in there.
Exactly. By using the distinctly male name Ottfried and then combining it with the heavy, aggressive, immovable imagery of a bull of Tolz, it implicitly suggests a massive fullness and a distinct lack of femininity.
You literally have to do the mental work to arrive at the insult.
It forces the target of the joke to connect those descriptive dots.
It's brilliant in a really twisted way. It actually operates exactly like a magic trick.
A magic trick? How so?
Think about it. In magic, there's this deliberate setup, the pledge, which is the your mother part. That builds the expectation.
Okay, I see where you're going.
Then you got the turn, the absurd scenario being painted, like the bull of Tolz. And finally, the prestige, the punchline that completely subverts reality, limited only by how incredibly inventive the speaker can be.
That is a perfect analogy. And it's that strict requirement for ingenuity that allows the joke to escalate in conversational settings.
It's like a tennis match.
Exactly, a tennis match of insults, a game of one-upmanship where you are constantly testing the other person's mental agility.
And we see a great example of this conversational escalation in the 2006 movie The Departed.
Oh yeah, classic scene.
Right. One character casually asks, "How's your mother?" And the other snaps back, "Good, she's tired from fucking my father."
Which completely hijacks the expected insult format.
Totally. The first guy is just asking a normal question. But the second guy anticipates the magic trick. He anticipates the yo mama setup and flips it into this bizarre, hyper-aggressive defense.
Yeah, he beats him to the punch.
But that aggressive defense brings up a really intense reality, because the source points out that these specific insults, compared to almost any other type of slur or swear word, are significantly more likely to incite actual physical
He
violence.
crossed the line that others don't.
Yeah. Why is your mother the nuclear option that ends conversations and starts footer fights?
Well, what's fascinating here is the psychological underpinning of that exact reaction. Sociologist John Dollard studied this phenomenon extensively, particularly in the context of a verbal game called the dozens. He theorized that this type of ritualized insult functioned fundamentally as a way to express or mitigate anger, specifically within underprivileged African American groups.
Wait, mitigate anger? How does insulting someone's mother act as a pressure valve? That seems like it would cause more anger, not less.
I know it sounds backwards, but it's about the social structure. Dollard analyzed this specifically as a matter of young men navigating a matriarchal structure.
Okay, meaning the mother is in charge.
Right. In environments where the mother is the central, respected pillar of the family, often the primary breadwinner and the ultimate authority figure holding the whole community together, insulting her is the absolute highest conceivable taboo.
Because she literally represents survival and stability.
Precisely. By creating a ritualized, competitive game around breaking that specific sacred taboo, it allows for the release of intense social and psychological pressure.
So it's a controlled environment.
Yes. It's a controlled, albeit very aggressive, verbal arena. Marginalized individuals can process the anger of their socioeconomic conditions without actually destroying the community fabric.
Wow. That reframes the entire concept. I mean, for you listening, think about how humor acts as a pressure valve in your own life.
We all do it.
Yeah. When you are dealing with stressful social dynamics or office politics or just overwhelming situations, how often do you use a dark or slightly inappropriate joke to just release some of that tension?
You're creating a safe micro-environment to break a rule.
Exactly. It's a survival mechanism disguised as comedy.
It is. But because it touches on such a primal nerve, the biological origin point, the mother, the reaction is incredibly volatile.
High risk, high reward.
Very high risk. If the pressure valve fails, or if the rules of the verbal game aren't mutually agreed upon by both parties, that linguistic tension snaps directly into physical violence.
Okay, so if this structural need to violate filial piety is such a fundamental human pressure valve, it makes perfect sense that we didn't just invent it on a 1980s playground.
No, not at all.
The mechanics of this go back thousands of years.
It spans entirely across antiquity. The historical record shows this exact mechanical structure operating in religious, political, and diplomatic spheres.
Which is wild. Wait, so revered philosophers and world leaders were basically doing schoolyard roasts.
Essentially, yes.
Let's look at the religious sphere first, because the Rabbi Eliezer story from the text is just wild.
It really is. So around the year 100 CE, there is an account of Rabbi Eliezer. He supposedly interrupted a man who was reading aloud from the book of Ezekiel in the Hebrew Bible.
Right.
Specifically, the man was reading from chapter 23.
And we really need to give some context to chapter 23 of Ezekiel, because it is not light reading.
No, it is known for being incredibly graphic.
Yeah, it's an allegory about two unfaithful sisters, Oholah and Oholibah, representing Samaria and Jerusalem. It is so explicit about their abominations that it was actually banned from public reading at various times in history.
Exactly. It carries immense religious and cultural weight. It's heavy.
Very heavy.
So this man is solemnly reading the opening words, "Mortal, proclaim to Jerusalem her abominations," and Rabbi Eliezer just cuts him off mid-sentence.
Out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere, and says, "Why don't you go out and proclaim the abominations of your mother?"
Okay, I have to push back a little here. Are we sure that wasn't just like a mistranslation or maybe a legitimate theological critique about the reader's actual family?
It's a fair question, but the consensus is that it functions as a deliberate, shocking disruption.
Oh, so he's trolling him.
Basically, Eliezer uses the extreme discomfort of the Ezekiel text and turns it outward. He takes the heavy prophetic judgment of Jerusalem's abominations and instantly trivializes the reader's authority by equating it to a crude maternal insult.
Oh.
It completely derails the solemnity of the moment.
It's a highly strategic disruption. And we see that same strategic use in ancient Rome, too, but applied to politics.
Ah, yes. Cicero.
Right. The famous orator Cicero had a fierce dispute with a politician named Metellus Nepos. Now, Roman politics was entirely built on the concept of patrician lineage. Your bloodline, your father's name, that dictated your entire social standing and your right to rule.
Which is exactly why Nepos thought he had the upper hand in this argument. He kept repeatedly asking Cicero in public, "Who is your father?"
He's trying to publicly shame him.
Yeah, he was trying to establish dominance by pointing out that Cicero was a new man, someone without a long, noble patrician bloodline.
So Nepos is using the father to attack Cicero's political legitimacy. And Cicero realizes, okay, I can't win a debate about my father's pedigree.
He literally doesn't have the history for it.
Right. So he changes the game entirely. He replies, in your case, your mother has made the answer to this question rather difficult.
It is just a brilliantly crafted, politically devastating counterattack.
So good.
Cicero doesn't even try to defend his own lineage. He completely invalidates Nepos's lineage by implying his mother was so promiscuous that Nepos's father could be literally anyone.
Boom. But notice how the mechanism shifts between these historical examples.
What do you mean?
Well, Cicero uses the insult to deflect a specific attack on his father's identity, right? But the Chinese king we talked about at the very beginning of the deep dive King Wei of Qi, he uses it to completely annihilate a structural power dynamic.
That is a crucial distinction. Let's look closely at the power dynamics of that exchange from the strategies of the warring states.
Yeah, lay it out for us.
King Wei of the state of Qi was a powerful, righteous leader of a very strong kingdom. But traditionally, he was supposed to remain loyal and obedient to the Zhou king.
Even though the Zhou king was weak at this point, right?
Exactly. At this point in history, the Zhou dynasty was incredibly poor and militarily weak. But they still held the ceremonial religious authority over all the states.
They were the figureheads. They had no real power, but you still had to respect the crown.
Right. So when the Zhou king died, all the states sent envoys to offer condolences. But the ambassador from Qi arrived late.
Which is a big faux pas.
A huge one. The new Zhou leadership, trying to flex what little authority they had left, was furious. They threatened to execute the envoy, basically sending a message saying, "How dare this petty Eastern kingdom arrive late to our royal funeral? We are executing your man for the indecency."
So the Zhou are using ceremonial protocol to try and force King Wei into submission.
Yes.
Because if he apologizes, he acknowledges their supremacy. If he attacks, he's a traitor to the realm. He is completely trapped.
Trapped until he bypasses the protocol entirely. He responds to the execution threat with, as we said, "Alas, for your mother was a slave girl."
The ultimate diplomatic mic drop. I mean, he doesn't argue about trade routes or the logistics of travel.
He doesn't posture about his military might.
No.
Because, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the incarnation of filial piety, this profound, unquestioning respect for parents and ancestors, was the bedrock of ancient Chinese society.
The absolute foundation.
Right. So by insulting the Zhou king's mother, King Wei levels the playing field instantly. He bypasses all the royal titles, the ceremonial authority, the historical precedent, and strikes directly at the biological origin.
He strips away all the fancy titles.
Exactly. He asserts his own dominance without ever having to declare a physical war.
That is just incredible. I mean, whether you are a rabbi disrupting a sermon, a Roman statesman dodging a lineage attack, or a Chinese king avoiding a diplomatic trap, the mechanism of power leveling is identical.
It really is.
And understanding those ancient high-stakes roots really helps us see how this expression of defiance evolved into the modern era. Because eventually, it morphs from this complex historical rhetoric into an all-purpose, rapid-fire cultural weapon.
We really see the linguistics distill down over time. The joke undergoes a massive process of compression. Yeah, you get slang variations like "or mum" or the isolated phrase "yo mama." It reaches a point where it doesn't even need the descriptive punchline anymore. The phrase itself becomes a universal symbol for defiance.
I like to think of it like linguistic compression, almost like a zip file on your computer or an app icon on your phone.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, because you don't need to see all the complex code running in the background. You just click the tiny icon and the entire program opens.
Right.
When someone simply says, "your mom today," they aren't telling a full joke. They are clicking the app icon. They are unpacking thousands of years of filial defiance, power leveling, and psychological pressure valves instantly into the listener's brain with just 2 syllables.
That's exactly how it functions in modern communication. And this compressed version deeply embedded itself in pop culture, especially gathering steam in the latter half of the 20th century.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Legendary comedians like Richard Pryor incorporated yo mama jokes into their stand-up routines, which massively contributed to pushing them into the mainstream. And then cinema adopted the structure, as a core comedic and psychological device.
Yeah, look at the 1992 movie White Men Can't Jump. The characters are constantly exchanging these jokes on the basketball court. But they aren't just trying to be funny. It is weaponized distraction. It's a way to establish the pecking order. On the street ball court, they are testing your mental fortitude before they ever test your physical fortitude.
If you can't handle the verbal game,
Exactly. If you crack under a joke about your mother, you will absolutely crack under a full court press.
it's the exact same psychological guard check that John Dollard observed in The Dozens. And we see a different application in the 1996 film The Nutty Professor.
Right, the comedy club scene.
Yes, there, the insult is used as a central part of a comedic but highly confrontational interaction between characters. It's used by the protagonist to dismantle a bully, reclaiming space and power in a public setting. It became a staple of cinematic dialogue because it immediately communicates a shift in dominance.
So it moved from the streets to the stage to the screen. But what is truly remarkable is how this ancient tool continues to cross boundaries, even right now, moving back into the realm of high-stakes, real-world communication.
Yes, the 2025 example.
Right. In October 2025, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt actually used a variation of the "Yo Mama" insult in response to a reporter's question during a live briefing.
It is a perfect modern echo of the Cicero dynamic. A public figure in a highly scrutinized political arena, reaching for a universally understood mechanism of defiance to deflect a perceived attack.
And just to be super clear for you listening, because politics is obviously a highly sensitive arena,
Well,
we aren't taking sides here.
no, absolutely not.
We aren't endorsing any political figures, left or right. We are just looking at this event strictly as a fascinating linguistic data point from our research material.
We're just looking at the history.
Exactly. We aren't endorsing the viewpoints of the individuals or their political action. We're just impartially analyzing how a historical mechanism showed up in a modern press room.
It is essential to view it through that analytical lens.
Okay.
Because when you do, it speaks volumes about the universal human condition.
Mm.
As long as there's a concept of family, and as long as humans experience anger, stress, or the need to challenge authority.
Which is forever.
Right. We will inevitably reach for the tools that we know will provoke the strongest possible reaction. It is human nature to find the pressure points.
It really is a testament to human nature, for better or worse. So, what does this all mean? We've traced a core human sentiment from the high-stakes diplomacy of the ancient Zhou dynasty through the disruptive texts of early rabbis to the political sparring of Roman statesmen.
It's quite the journey.
It really is. We've seen it compressed into a linguistic ZIP file on the basketball courts of 90s comedy movies, and we've watched it land squarely in a 2025 White House press briefing. What looks like a simple juvenile insult on the surface is actually a highly complex, historically rich social tool.
Very rich.
It has been used for centuries across continents to mitigate anger, to challenge the powerful, to level the playing field, and to constantly test the limits of human ingenuity through humor.
And that reliance on human ingenuity leads to a really fascinating concept to leave off on.
Oh, lay it on us.
Well, we established that the joke's power relies entirely on traditional maternal roles and patriarchal family structures to land its punch. It requires the mother to be this universally sacred, untouchable pillar of stability for the taboo to work.
Right, the matriarchal structure dynamic that John Dollard theorized. The pressure valve only works if the rule you are breaking is universally respected.
Precisely. So as our societal definitions of family, gender, and matriarchal structures continue to shift dramatically in the modern age, how will the Yo Mama joke adapt?
Oh, wow.
Will this ancient punchline eventually lose its taboo power entirely because the underlying social structures have changed so much? Or will human ingenuity simply find a new, unexpected way to reinvent the ultimate insult?
If the target moves, how does the arrow change? Will the ultimate taboo shift from the mother to something entirely different in the next 100 years?
That is a brilliant question. I mean, think about what the ultimate taboo is in your own social circles today and how people try to navigate it.
Something to chew on. Definitely. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this incredibly unexpected journey through history, psychology, and playground survival tactics. Keep digging, keep questioning the everyday things around you, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.